Hey everyone, it's been way too long since I did a video, something like 3 months or something like that. So I wanted to record just a quick off-the-cuff video on CI/CD and why most of us are doing it wrong. So to start out, let's talk about CI/CD and what are they? Um, Lots of times CI/CD is talked about in kind of one sentence. CI/CD is talked about as one entity, but in reality they're two separate things. So let's start with the CI part first. CI means continuous integration, and what that ends up being is, in its simplest form, it's basically running your unit tests every time you push. So most of us are probably using Git. Most of the topics about CI/CD frame them in terms of the Git workflow. Lots of different version control systems work similarly, but most of the examples are in terms of Git. So when you're working in Git, you write some code, you stage your changes, you commit, and then you push. And the idea is that as soon as you push, your CI server, your continuous integration server, picks up those changes, builds the software, runs unit tests on them, and shows you a result within 5 or 10 minutes. That's the target that we're going for, is that 5 or 10 minute window, ideally. In practice, sometimes this just means that your code gets built. Sometimes the actual testing stage is a separate stage. Technically, in order to truly be continuous integration, both of those steps have to happen automatically without intervention. And even more ideally, all of that would happen across all of the teams, all of the developers, literally continuously. So as teams are working, they're committing code, pushing code, and it is getting integrated, not just built in test, but integrated with everything that everybody else is doing. And this very rapidly approaches a concept called trunk-based development, which is something that I hope to explore possibly in another video, but something I've never really done in my workflow, but something that I want to get into. There is a website for it. I think it's trunkbaseddevelopment.com or something like that. Talks all about it, and continuous integration is kind of a prerequisite for getting to trunk-based development. So now talking about the CD side of things, there are actually two things that the initials CD could stand for. It could either mean continuous deployment or continuous delivery. There is a subtle difference that's worth exploring. So continuous deployment means when everything is integrated into your master, main, or trunk branch, that code is built, tests are run against it, maybe there's some additional validation and verification steps that happen, and then it is actually deployed to be available to people to use. So if you're building a web app, it's deployed to your web server, your production web servers. And this is all an automated process. This doesn't require any manual intervention. No one needs to press a button to make that happen. Every time there's a merge into main or a push to main, it automatically goes out to those servers. Continuous delivery is slightly different. It just means that the code on the main branch is built and tested and is made available to end users. So a lot of times this is talked about in the world of desktop applications or even mobile applications, right? You might deploy to the App Store, but you're really delivering it to the App Store. That doesn't necessarily mean that people are downloading it onto their devices right away, but you're making it available. You're delivering it to your end user, even if you're not deploying it to a specific environment. And while most of those terms, the one is seen as the endpoint for web applications or SaaS applications, and the other is more for desktop applications, you could say that continuous deployment is a form of continuous delivery, but not the other way around, right? Just making an application available doesn't necessarily mean it's been deployed. And the way that most of us think about continuous deployment is just that pipeline. So something happens on master, we build, test, and send it out to wherever we want to send it out to. And that's actually an area where I think most pipelines actually truly do continuous deployment. If you're doing something of that nature, you're doing continuous deployment. There's nothing different between that and the textbook definition. Now, the biggest question with anything like this about you're doing something wrong is, does it matter? And honestly, if you're not doing continuous integration or continuous deployment correctly, sure, you might not gain all the value that you might get if you're doing it correctly, but that value might be merely incremental for your organization. Most of the time, we do enough continuous integration and continuous deployment to solve the problems that our organization is facing, and then we stop because it's just not cost effective to go any further, and that's totally fine. It doesn't matter if you're doing continuous integration, the textbook definition. If you're not doing trunk-based development, you're not doing trunk-based development, and that's totally fine. In fact, there are some compliance regulations that require that you can't do true trunk-based development. And if you fall into one of those industries where you have to adhere to those compliance standards, you have to do continuous integration a different way. Doesn't mean that you're doing bad things or doing things wrong. You just might not be following the textbook definition of continuous integration. So I really think continuous integration is kind of a spectrum. Continuous deployment, continuous delivery as well, right? Because there's a difference between deployment and delivery. But continuous integration is a spectrum. And as long as you're doing some sort of automated build, that's step one. If you're not doing an automated build, that's the place to start. Some sort of automated tests, and I would start with unit tests because those are by far the easiest to write. They're the easiest to get running in an environment that's not a dev machine because they typically don't require the full stack or a full UI. If you're doing like a desktop application, you can pretty quickly and easily stand up unit tests, and then go on to things like integration tests where you might need to stand up a database or an actual full application stack, and then potentially even UI automation where you do need the entire stack and you need multiple moving pieces. Those are the hardest to set up. Those can all go into a continuous integration pipeline. But the best place to start is at the beginning, and however far along that journey is necessary to achieve your organizational goals, you are still on the continuous integration journey, and you're doing good things even if you're not doing continuous integration by the textbook definition. That's all I wanted to talk about in this video. Hope you liked it. If you did, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try to post videos more regularly, so no 3-month-long hiatuses like we just went through. So hopefully I'll be posting videos regularly, and click subscribe and click that notification bell so you'll get notified when videos come out. And of course, feel free to drop a comment if there's a topic you want to learn about, or if you found this interesting, or if your organization is doing something that I didn't cover in this video. I'd really like to know, because I'm always excited to hear how people are doing different things in the world of software engineering. Hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.